All right. I think I'm the only one on the roster for New Testament, but yeah, I guess I'll say class. Um, I guess I chose or wanted to go with the prompt for this first discussion board. What attitude toward Christianity and the life of Jesus emerged during the French Revolution, and then explore how that has influenced and shaped thought today. And kind of my quick thesis right up front is we've seen that the French Revolution produced a secular, a rationalistic attitude that dethroned Christianity as the moral center of society and recast Jesus not as divine, but as a moral teacher. So he's not the Lord, he just has some good ideas. And I think that worldview still shapes how our culture thinks about faith, truth, politics, all those things in light of the person of Jesus. So I think in order for us to understand the shift, we need to just start with some definition. The first term that I want to highlight is de-Christianization, which was the deliberate effort by revolutionary leaders to erase the influence of the church from public view. Again, they closed cathedrals, banned holy days, certain feasts. They confiscated church property and even replaced the 7-day week with a 10-day revolutionary calendar. Then the term anti-clericism, which is obviously what it sounds like, against the clergy. Not just rejection of faith, but holistic rejection toward religious authority. In their eyes, the church wasn't just spiritual, it was political corruption. And again, part of the reason why I chose this is because it really does influence and shape where I believe we are today in America. Final term that I want to give us is the term secularism. And again, this is the belief that reason, not revelation, should actually govern the public life. The revolution's cult of reason literally tried to replace Christianity with human logic as the object of worship. So Carl Rasmussen notes in the Atlas of the Bible that the geography of the Bible was built around worship, meaning temples, synagogues, sacred spaces. But the French Revolution tried to flip that by building society without reference to the sacred. David de Silva reminds us that in the New Testament world, faith and life were integrated. Religious was not just this private thing that was compartmentalized, but it was actually a public allegiance. And the revolution shattered that assumption. Again, we see that by the late 1700s, Enlightenment thinking, it began to elevate reason, science. The revolution simply weaponized those ideas. And Christianity was then recast as superstition. Jesus was reinterpreted as a humanist. And so again, coming with this philosophical or with this human logic to repackage who Jesus was. He's no longer the resurrected God. He's an enlightened moralist and a social reformer. Arthur Patzia, in The Making of the New Testament, reminds us that early Christians, they preserved the Gospels because they believed Jesus carried authority. They believed he was God. And then we see the scholars of the Revolution did the exact opposite. They began to dissect the Bible as mere literature and not something divine revealed from God. So that attitude gave birth to the redefinition where faith became private, reason became public, and the life of Jesus was treated as a symbol and not as the authoritative Lord. In contrast, just kind of going back to scripture, we see in Matthew 22, verse 21, where Jesus says, "Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." So in that moment, he's acknowledging governmental authority, but he refuses to surrender ultimate allegiance. Likewise, in Romans chapter 13, we see Paul write, "Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God. And so what we see here is the New Testament is giving a worldview where earthly power is real, but it's derivative. It's sourced. It flows from God, not man. And the French Revolution attempted or successfully inverted that idea for a lot of people. They placed the state and human reason above divine authority. And so while Jesus says Caesar is temporary, God is eternal, the revolution would say reason is supreme and God is optional. And fast forward to today, obviously we're still living in the shadow of that shift. Modern secular thought has assumed faith to be this private, even a subjective thing, while reason and science are public and objective. And we can see how Jesus is often presented not as the risen Christ, but as an inspiring teacher, a revolutionary leader, a symbol of love, all around good dude. The French Revolution's legacy is obviously intertwined in Western culture and tend to admire Jesus, but is resistance towards worshiping Jesus. And I would say even in ministry, I feel that tension. I think ministry leaders, we all feel that tension. Our neighbors are comfortable with faith as long as it stays out of the public square. Even some comments we got recently on our church's social media, separation of church and state. And all we were doing was hosting an academy graduation for our police department. And so there's this thought where people love the idea of Jesus, but not the authority of Jesus. Again, some historians do point out that the French Revolution didn't only destroy faith, it purified it. Again, just some opposing thoughts. That out of the chaos came these great thinkers whose genius of Christianity puts this belief that Christ's beauty and morality are what make him a great person. And again, I would say that while that's true, the backlash did awaken a spiritual hunger. People began to broadly speak, and the revolution still set the tone for secular modern life. It didn't erase Jesus, it just rebranded him. In the Atlanta Plain, we see that the French Revolution replaced revelation with reason, worship with rationalism, and the lordship of Christ with liberal humanism. And I think that attitude continues to shape the world today. The question I would throw out there for any classmates or future classmates is, how can we, as followers of Jesus today, present the divine Christ to a culture that's comfortable with the human Jesus, but skeptical about his authority? Thanks for the time. Hope to hear from you soon.